Good evening, everyone. It's almost day 3 at reInvent 2024. We're halfway through reInvent. Thank you for taking the time out this afternoon to attend our session on building a global SaaS platform from scratch featuring Werfen. Healthcare and life science customers are utilizing the AWS platform and solutions to accelerate innovation and improve patient care by offering better security, improving their data management capabilities, and operating efficiencies improvement at the same time without compromising on their security posture. And cloud-based SaaS is allowing our customers to shift to a service-oriented model, thereby enhancing their competitiveness in the digital healthcare landscape. My name is Agasti Kothurkar. I'm a solutions architect at AWS, where I work primarily with customers who are new to building solutions on our platform. And today, I am joined by Nilesh Kumar and Praveen Adimulum from Werfen, who will share with you their own journey of building out the SaaS platform from scratch. So by a show of hands, how many of you are about to build out a new SaaS platform or are in your initial stages of building one out? You? And how many of you want to build out a solution but are concerned about meeting your regulatory compliance goals? Oh, I see a fair share of hands as well. And this is some of the top of mind concerns we hear from all our customers. So I'm glad you're here. In this session today, we'll address these topics and also learn firsthand how Werfen addressed each one of them during their journey as well. Quick review of our agenda today. We'll focus on what are some of the building blocks of SaaS. Now, SaaS is a very wide concept. So what we'll focus on are what are some of the must-know technical aspects to help you get started on your journey. Then we'll focus on architecting for compliance. How do you ensure that you set your foundations right from the get-go, and with a focus on HIPAA and ISO 27001. Nilesh and Praveen will then walk you through the Werfen Digital Solutions platform and also the cloud platform's technology architecture. I'll wrap up with a few takeaways. And towards the end, we will remain available in this area to address any questions that you may have as well. So let's get started. So what exactly we mean by SaaS, or software as a service? Now, SaaS is a cloud-based software distribution model that allows users to access applications over the internet, typically using a web browser. This allows customers to focus on the end value result without focusing on building out the infrastructure that is required, because all that is taken care of by the SaaS provider. The term tenant in this context means the customer that is using the SaaS application. Now, I'm sure all of us in this room have used SaaS in some form or the other, be it email, collaboration tools, customer relationship management software, file sharing software. It's all SaaS for you. Now, there's no one pathway to build a SaaS application. Some customers have existing enterprise applications that they move to a SaaS platform. Some others get the opportunity to build out something from scratch. And there are other business influences, for example, data residency needs, compliance requirements, time to market, etc. And given that, you'll appreciate there is no one-size-fits-all model to building SaaS. But that being said, whenever you're building out a SaaS platform from scratch, there are a few key considerations that you need to think through and design for. While these are not fully exhaustive, they are broadly applicable to a wide variety of use cases. So let's start with the management aspect. How do you manage and operate your SaaS platform? I would say first thing, start with building out and capturing the metrics and analytics that are both tenant aware and application tier aware. Once you start capturing these metrics, it'll give you insight into how your application is behaving in your production environment and can inform your scaling decisions. When it comes to billing, we've seen many of our customers utilize models such as usage-based billing, consumption-based billing, subscription, and of late I've also seen feature-based billing as well. And as the platform usage grows, you want to provision for user growth, provision the additional resources, and also manage tenant authorization and authentication. Coming to this actual SaaS application, you want to focus on how you are going to isolate one tenant from the other. How are the data workloads going to be partitioned? And finally, how are you going to ensure that your end customer is being routed to the tenant that they signed up for? Tenancy is another key area when it comes to SaaS. Whenever you're onboarding your applications, where are the users going to be stored? How are their identities going to be mapped to the specific tenant? And how is the platform going to render the tier of service that they signed up for? So these are some of the high-level things as a SaaS architect you need to think through and design for. And I would highly recommend working closely with your business partners so that you can then finalize your technical design. Because at the end of the day, the final technology design could be influenced heavily by business factors. For example, is this an existing application that we are migrating along with its users or a brand new application? What is the speed to market? Are there any other compliance or data residency needs? Right? So I would highly encourage you to work closely with your business partners to design this. Whenever you're thinking about SaaS, it is helpful to have a mental model and break it up into two parts, the control plane and the application plane. The control plane is where all the shared services and the functionality required for your platform to operate reside. And these could include metrics, billing, analytics, etc. And all these help operate the application plane. Now, keeping the SaaS plane separate helps you operate it as a separate service of its own in a standalone fashion. The application plane is where the core functionality of your application resides. That is where the microservices are deployed. That is where the data partitioning is utilized, tenant isolation, and all the best practices that are followed. And I'll cover these patterns shortly. But that's where the core functionality resides. It is also essential to set up connectivity between your application plane and the control plane. Now, the application plane will scale as the usage grows. But for that to happen, it must emit telemetry back to the control plane that helps manage and scale. So it is essential to capture the utilization metrics, the tenant utilization, tenant activity, and the application plane should surface all of it back to the control plane to allow for effective management. Now, another advantage of separating the control plane and the application plane is it gives you the flexibility to use independent technology stacks for each of these planes. I've seen some of our customers use serverless technologies for their control plane, and for the application plane focus on containers or even virtual machine-based solutions. So you can optimize the technology usage based on the patterns and the usage for each one of them. And if you're getting started with building out SaaS platforms from scratch, I would highly encourage you to start with the control plane first, and then add features to the application plane along with your application or MVPs as you roll it out. So across over a period of time, we've heard cloud native application development, right? So we've seen many of our customers deploy cloud native development techniques in their teams and start building applications that follow some best practices of service discovery, tenant isolation, routing, etc. It might lead to an illusion that you're building SaaS. However, unless you actually build out the control plane and all the services and features that can help operate the SaaS platform, you're not truly building SaaS. So once again, the need for you to separate out two separate application plane and control planes and build them and deploy them independently. Whenever we talk about SaaS, the term multi-tenant you often hear the term multi-tenant. And it sometimes gets confusing. What is multi-tenant? Is it SaaS? Now, typically, you deploy infrastructure on a shared infrastructure. That makes it multi-tenant by default. But that is not SaaS. In fact, many SaaS providers deploy the same identical copy of the software stack on dedicated hardware for all their customers. A while back, our AWS experts from the SaaS Factory team put together some methodology or the terms that can help you understand what the deployment models are. So the siloed deployment model is where all the resources in the stack are deployed specifically for a tenant. And in this case, an entire stack is dedicated to a tenant. The pooled deployment model indicates that there is going to be resources that are shared across multiple tenants. And in the bridge model, I've seen this rarely used, but it is definitely applicable. It indicates that the infrastructure, some pieces could be siloed, some could be pooled as well. Now, whenever customers start building out their SaaS application, I've seen many of them start deploying with the pooled pattern. That's where the minimal viable product is built out, the initial feature functionality is deployed, and as and when the business requirements come in, additional usage grows, they're able to add more customers, they move to either of the other patterns based on customer demand and operational excellence. Tenant isolation is one of the key aspects of SaaS. Right? You want to ensure that data stored from one tenant is not shared between the other. You want to ensure data security is safely isolated from each other. And each of these tenant isolation patterns have differences based on cost and operational complexity. Right? So the full stack isolation pattern indicates that a set of resources are fully isolated for one tenant. There is no sharing between them. Now think of it like you deploy one tenant in one AWS account and the other in a different one. So that's your isolation boundary. Or you could also deploy it in a separate VPC of its own. That's your isolation boundary too. The resource level isolation pattern indicates that you could have separate data and storage infrastructure for your tenants. So for example, you could have independent S3 buckets, independent RDS instances for those tenants. Right? And the item level isolation is where all the resources belonging to multiple tenants are stored in the same data and storage system. Now in this case, you could drive isolation by using separate tenant IDs, row level encryption, or encrypting the data in each row using specific tenant-specific encryption keys as well. So again, when you start building out your SaaS application, the infrastructure and architecture should be flexible enough to allow you to port between each of these patterns based on utilization, usage, business needs, and growth that you see in the business. Tiering is another important aspect that differentiates SaaS from the rest of the applications that you deploy. Right? So SaaS providers use a combination of deployment strategies and tenant isolation patterns to offer different tiers of their application to their end customers. And these tiers are differentiated between differences in their data isolation pattern, the service level uptime, and in terms of features as well. A very quick overview of some of the basic the patterns that we've seen in terms of tiering being deployed. Some customers start off with basic, advanced, and platinum tiers. Many others just use one tier and continue with it for the rest of their operations and add additional tiers only that's driven based on customer demand and again, how the business grows. Okay. Now, when it comes to SaaS and cost, these are like a match made in heaven. Customers want to adopt SaaS given the cost aspects and also want to offer it to their end customers given the cost of SaaS as well. So whenever we're talking about SaaS, one question often I get from all my customers is like, how do I figure out the cost per tenant? Now the business might not necessarily be interested in a cost per tenant metric, but it is essential for you to capture that metric because that will give you an idea of how your platform is expanding and you can set your pricing, your packaging tiers based on that. We saw the different isolation models. So a SaaS platform incurs cost because of running the shared services and also the applications that run on top of it. Now, in a siloed pattern, the cost per environment is pretty easy to figure out because you have a dedicated infrastructure. You can utilize the best practices of cost allocation tags and then activate the tagging strategies, etc. And then within the cost and usage report, you can figure out, okay, this tenant is costing me this much to use. When it comes to the pooled model, that's where the complexity comes in. So what the thought process up here I would recommend is instrument your SaaS application to first derive the compute usage. Then check the average utilization of the storage services, for example, S3, RDS, where how much each tenant is consuming. And based on that, build up a general model of what is the utilization per tenant. Use that model and then compare it with your cost and usage report and then figure out like, okay, this is an approximate cost of a tenant operating in a pooled model. Now, I want to highlight the approximate cost. Here, you want to get as close as possible to the cost per tenant and not perfect accounting. Okay? And at the same time, this is the AWS services. There are a variety of AWS partner solutions that can help you get derive cost per tenant as well. I also want to highlight a couple of our services, Amazon ECS and EKS, that support the split cost allocation data model, SCAD as we call it, those provide insights into utilization of these services per tenant. So that helps you in your cost calculations too. Now, you've built out your SaaS application, it's running up and fine. Now you want to capture telemetry from your system, how well your system is doing. And that is where you want to ingest all the data back into the control plane. Now, honestly, there is no shortage of metrics you can capture. And it might feel intimidating. But my guidance to you is focus on those metrics that are important to you and your stakeholders. For example, your stakeholders here could be executives, could be your product owners, or your operations team. There are AWS services that can help you ingest, analyze, and visualize these data sets. That is the easy part. Right? You want to actually get data from your application as well. And that is where the development teams need to invest in building that tooling as well. The AWS services can help you capture system level information, but at the same time, developers need to instrument their application to surface telemetry around usage, billing metrics, and send it back to the control plane. Right? And in fact, we've seen many of our customers build common shared services or libraries that are reused across their applications to help service this observability. At the same time, there are solutions from our partners that could help you as well. This is a busy slide. However, this is one example of a SaaS serverless reference architecture. Now, AWS provides several reference architectures that you can utilize to start building out your SaaS platform from scratch. Now, this is one model based on the SaaS aspect, but there are others from ECS and container-based models that you could utilize as well. So this particular architecture deploys a multi-tenant SaaS solution using our serverless application development patterns. Okay? And that is built on key AWS services such as Amazon API Gateway, Lambda, SDS, Cognito, CloudFront, S3, etc. And the beauty about this is all these are pay-per-use, so usage-based services. So your team can focus on building value to your customer instead of focusing on managing the infrastructure. I wanted to quickly plug in the AWS SaaS Builder Toolkit, and I'll link to it as well towards the end. The SaaS Builder Toolkit is an open source developer framework that can help you quickly get started on building out your SaaS application. It has a bunch of ready-made components that you can utilize. It actually reduces the boilerplate code that you need to build out to create your SaaS application is ready to use. And definitely, as I mentioned, I'll link to it as well. We focus on the technology aspects of building SaaS. Another top of mind concern that I hear from all our customers is compliance. Some of the questions that you might want to answer is like, I want to build out a SaaS platform, I want to operate all the services, but how do I ensure compliance? As app owners, as developers, you want to build out a platform that allows for extensibility and iteration over time without compromising on the compliance posture. Now, whenever we talk about compliance, I want to remind everyone in the room about the shared responsibility model. This AWS shared responsibility model is a framework that helps you identify what are the responsibilities that AWS will take care of and what our end customers need to focus on. AWS will take care of, is responsible for security of the cloud. And that includes our infrastructure, our physical data centers, our servers, our network, our infrastructure, virtualization, software stack, and all the facilities that could be used to deliver the applications. As customers, you are responsible for security of your application, all your data that you deploy in the cloud. Right? So this mental model is extremely essential to understand as we dive deeper into the compliance journey. To help you get started, first step in our compliance journey, especially when you focus on healthcare and life sciences, is signing up a BAA. To help you focus on the HIPAA compliance, first thing you do is identify which accounts in your AWS environment will host HIPAA-compliant workloads. And then you sign a BAA from those accounts. Now you have the ability to sign for an individual account or for the entire AWS organization as a whole. Right? Then you start building out your SaaS applications using HIPAA-eligible services. Now each of these services have specific nuances on how you're going to configure them. There is a white paper, again, I'll link to that. That white paper talks about how you're going to configure each of those services. There are minutiae that you need to be aware of when you go ahead and build that out. Okay. So when you talk of PHI, you need to ensure that you're encrypting PHI in transit and in rest as well. Another key area that I've seen many of our customers focus on is ISO 27001 compliance. For ISO 27001 compliance, you need to ensure that you're implementing an information security management system or ISMS that meets the requirements of the standard while utilizing AWS services. Now remember, AWS will provide you all the tools and services that can help you achieve ISO 27001. This compliance or certification applies to your implementation of the infrastructure security management system. So utilize this as part of your broader compliance strategy. And we also have a Global Security Acceleration Program from AWS that provides you guidance around regulatory controls and other security aspects from a compliance strategy that you should definitely engage with as you embark on your journey. And most importantly, being compliant is not a one-time thing. You need to ensure constant compliance by continuously scanning your environment and remediating any findings from the environment too. A quick plug-in for these two terms, it can sometimes cause some confusion. HIPAA eligible does not mean HIPAA compliant. Now, when you talk about being HIPAA eligible, it refers to a product or service that can fulfill all the needs of HIPAA compliance. It has the bells and whistles or other controls that can help you configure the HIPAA compliance, and it's designed with HIPAA in mind. HIPAA compliant refers to a service or a product or an organization that fulfills all the requirements of HIPAA compliance, has all the necessary controls in place to safeguard PHI and actively monitors the environment and remediates findings as well. Now, being HIPAA compliant is an ongoing process that requires continuous effort and vigilance. Use it as part of a broader strategy to drive compliance through implementing risk management processes, education, and tooling within the organization too. So you've heard of multiple AWS services, and you might wonder now which one of these will actually help me get started on my compliance posture, right? And this is a concern that many of our customers have as well. So that is where I want to present the 3 lines model. Right? The 3 lines model is a standard prepared by the Institute of Internal Auditors that can help you drive in compliance across your organization. Now, this model describes 3 lines of defense. And the first line of defense is where you define and manage the risk. So that is where services such as AWS Config, CloudTrail, Systems Manager, Control Tower, and License Manager can help you do that. And you deploy the controls and then figure out how the resources are configured as compared to the best practices that are defined. The second line is where you want to see a view of all the risk in your platform, right? You want to have a centralized dashboard, like how is my overall landscape, a unified command center sometimes as I call it, right? So that is where the AWS services like Security Hub and Config can help as well. The third line of defense is where you provide the assurance of risk management. You want to provide guidance or evidence to your auditors that you're indeed compliant with the standards that you claim to be. So that is where services such as AWS Audit Manager can help you provide evidence to your auditors as well. Quick double click into the AWS Config service that can help you along the compliance journey. Now, AWS Config helps you record, evaluate all the resources that are deployed in your AWS infrastructure, and also provides you a visual interface to see changes to these resources over time. A config rule is something that you could utilize that defines best practices that you can validate whether you're meeting them or not. And a conformance pack is a collection of config rules that you can deploy across your entire organization and have them continuously validate the posture that you intended to be compliant with. Config aggregators help you ingest data from multiple regions and then get an overall sense of how your visibility metrics are. Just want to double click further on this, the HIPAA compliance pack. To help you get started on your HIPAA compliance journey or get a head start up here, AWS provides an out-of-the-box HIPAA config conformance pack. Now what it does is a set of rules that are deployed in the account that continuously scan the environment with regards to the controls from HIPAA. And it gives you like, these resources are compliant, these are not, and it also gives you reasons why not. Right? So you should deploy this as part of your overall assessment strategy as well. For the ISO 27001 compliance standard, you should utilize the service offered by AWS Audit Manager. So this has a native integration that can help you create assessment, generate evidence, and generate the reports that you can share with your auditors. It evaluates config rules in the background, and that is evidence you can present to your auditors as well. Okay. You've heard all SaaS good aspects, all the services. Now you might just be wondering, okay, how do I set up my foundational environment and get going? And that is where I would refer you to the Landing Zone Accelerator, or LZA as we call it. The AWS Landing Zone Accelerator is a comprehensive solution that can help you set up a multi-account environment that is compliant with global compliance standards across the globe. It is built on top of the AWS Control Tower, and it has features like it is built using the AWS CDK, so you have infrastructure as code right out of the bat. Then you can have deployment of 35 plus services. Multiple compliance standards can be deployed using simplified configuration files. All you have to do is configure those files and start your journey up there. And it is meant to be deployed, ready to deploy in your own account so you can get started, right? And the landing zone for healthcare is an industry-specific implementation of the LZA that can fast-track the implementation of HIPAA and ISO 27001, right? And the landing zone is available on GitHub for you. Take a look at it, subscribe to the project, and as and when newer releases are deployed, I would ask you to deploy it in your environment as well. So far in this journey, you've heard all the technology aspects. However, technology is just one part of being successful in SaaS. Successfully adopting SaaS requires you to adopt your organization's operating model and operating culture to utilize the full benefit of SaaS. To walk you through how Werfen went through this transformation, I'll invite on stage Nilesh Kumar to give you a ringside view of the journey. Over to you, Nilesh.
Thank you, Agasti. And good afternoon, everyone. Really excited to be here to share Werfen's cloud journey and how we build this SaaS platform at Werfen from scratch, using a lot of the building blocks that Agasti talked about. But I will leave that for Praveen to talk about the tech part. Now, what I want to talk about is more around giving you a business perspective of what it took for us and why we went this route of building out a SaaS SaaS platform. And to do that, I would like to give you a little bit of an overview of Werfen. And what better way than to talk about our purpose? Our purpose is very, very simple, yet very strong and very powerful. And I will pick 3 key pieces of from that purpose. What we are and what we aim to be is defined by those 3 pieces. One is we are in the specialized diagnostics area. Second is global reach. And most importantly, innovation. So Werfen as a company works in this 5 specialized diagnostics domain: hemostasis, transfusion, acute care, autoimmunity, and transplant. And this is where we add value to our customers day in and day out. Global reach. We are a global company. We are based out of Barcelona in Spain, but we have tech and business centers all across the globe strategically located. And our presence is in 30 plus countries, taking our innovative solutions to a diverse set of population. They also provide us a lot of feedback, which we use to innovate and improve healthcare. And then most importantly, innovation. We have a rich history of innovation. And I will take just one business line and one analyzer and show a timeline with 60 years of innovation. And I will not drain this slide. There are 7 or 8 firsts on this slide. Whether it be invention of CO oximetry, whether it be the first analyzer to incorporate multi-use cartridge, or the first analyzer that has gone into the market this year that can detect hemolyzed samples at point of care. These things are groundbreaking. It saves patient lives where minutes matter. However, as we look ahead, with this rich legacy of innovation, what's next? And we found the opportunity that digital transformation will be that next, I would say, innovative leap that will power this company. And this provides opportunity for Werfen, this digital transformation and formation of this digital team provides like 3-4 opportunity. One, improve clinical outcome. That's why we exist. I mean, if we cannot do that, we should cease to exist. Extend the value of existing medical devices. Now with smart connectivity and analytics, we can gain more actionable intelligence from data and extend the value of medical devices. And lastly, create new revenue streams. As we work on products which provide clinical decision support and lab decision support, these can be new revenue streams for Werfen. Now, I think most of us know of a company that started 30 years ago selling books online. So we also want to become a key player in digital transformation of healthcare. And we think we can do that in a very, very fast time to market and in a matter that adheres to our principles and our vision and our mission. So with that, we formed the Digital Factory, and with a very, very well-defined mission. What is Digital Factory? Consider this as a manufacturing floor for software products. So we are based out of Werfen. Floor below us are where analyzers and medical devices are actually manufactured. And on our floor, we manufacture software products. That's Digital Factory for us. And our start, and I want to take you through this because this is not an easy journey, and a lot of you raised your hand when the question was asked as to, are you starting or do you want to build this? And it's not easy. This was my day one. I was the first external hire into this team, and I took this picture. Literally and figuratively, it was an empty canvas. We started from this. And our task was cut out in our journey. It's not about technology only, right? You have to put your best practices in place, new ways of working, hiring a team. We made a conscious decision to hire a co-located team. That was not easy in 2022, trust me. So those were the things that we started with. We started ideating. We started talking with our business partners to see what kind of ideas are flowing into that can turn into products that can be monetized in future. So this is where, and in parallel, as we built together a small team, we started tinkering. We started playing around with all the tools, all the building blocks that Agasti talked about, and say, okay, what works for us? What doesn't? Without pouring in a lot of investment up front. And as part of this tinkering, experimentation, learning, failing, pivoting, we came up with a straw man. Actually, it was two of us, Praveen and I, like, hey, this is how we think this thing will evolve over the next few years. And it doesn't have to be perfect, trust me. Come up with something simple, something scalable, and work off that. If you try to aim for perfection right in the first go, it's a futile exercise, trust me. And then from there, this is where we are today. The same empty space has become a hub of innovation, collaboration, where builders are very actively working together, ideating, giving life to some of the ideas that our business partners brought to us. So it's a pictorial, visual representation of our journey, which is non-tech related, but I feel that is very powerful to show, when you start from a blank slate, there's a lot of things beyond technology that you need to work on. Tech is easy for all of you, I guess. It's the other pieces that hold us back. And when we did this, we also came up with some business goals as to why are we trying to do this. Things like faster time to market. We wanted to get products out there faster. Cost efficiency and scalability. We had a FinOps mindset. As I said before, we didn't want to pour in a significant amount of money and investment and resources before seeing the benefits of it. Increase innovation and flexibility. That's almost like a hygiene factor for us to survive, with disruptions happening all around us. This is very important. Alignment between business and software teams. Without that, any such journey will not succeed. You have to get your business partner sit next to you, literally, and kind of day in and day out work closely with you, providing you feedback, providing you suggestions as this whole thing evolves. Continuous improvement and agility. Again, I consider this a hygiene factor. As you mature over time, you should always aim for continuous improvement, agility should be built into the process because there will be times where you will have to pivot, business needs might change, business requirements might change, you might hit a failure or an impediment, throughout your technical journey. You should be agile and you should be able to pivot quickly and take failures in your stride because, trust me, you will fail a few times, in this journey. And then finally, talent. It's very important. We have to make sure that you build a culture where you can retain and attract and retain talent and take this journey forward. So from there, I would like to pivot to what I talked about as a straw man. So we came up with this business architecture vision, and I will take you top down, or outside in, with whatever is the terminology, where our business partners, let's say I talked about 5 business units, they came up with 5 product ideas. We went through a pressure testing phase, evaluated them, said, oh wow, these are great ideas. These are all monetizable. These serve or help solve a customer pain point and has some very well-defined business needs. We have 5 SaaS products at our hand that we might have to build. How do you go about that, right? So first, what we did first was started looking at common business services and trying to extract that out, or and abstract that out from these products. So start looking at, hey, do these products need to talk to our lab information system? Yes, then why do we want to do it 5 different ways? Let's extract it out as a service. Is there patient management involved? Is there order management is something that we can extract out? Is quality control something that we can abstract out from these products? So again, this is an illustrative list. It's not an exhaustive list, but these were the kind of questions we started asking upfront and see what are the things that we can abstract out and then kind of build it once and reuse it across all those five products. We also realized there are a set of technical services that needs to be abstracted out. Agusti talked about control plane. This was literally our control plane, where we looked at, hey, we want to do tenant management. All those 5 applications will have to do tenant management, identity management, data management, observability, which Agusti touched upon. These are the things, application management, how do you do licensing, billing management? Why do I need to have these 5 different products do it in their own way? Why can't I abstract those out? And this was the genesis of Werfen Cloud Platform. All of these technical services that will build it once, and then it can be reused by all of these products that we are building. Analytics, we are on the journey on doing that. So this formed almost like our control plane or the Werfen, the cloud platform on which all of these go-to-market products can reside. And finally, the infrastructure piece. Agusti again talked about landing zone and control tower and so on. So we heavily leveraged the building blocks, you call them Lego pieces, from AWS, arsenal or toolbox of services to build out this infrastructure piece, which was scalable, secure, reliable, resilient, and all those good, non-functional stuff, right? So that is how we took a top-down approach, starting with what are we building? What are the customer pain points that we are trying to solve for? And then go down to the tech level and see, okay, what do we need to solve those pain points? Make sense? So from now, once I've done this, now I will hand it over to Praveen to take us bottoms up and see, okay, from a tech perspective, how did we leverage some of these building blocks, and from when it came to infrastructure, a platform, and build this out, and what were our key learnings, and what we can share it with you in terms of where we failed, where we succeeded, and what you all should be looking out for as you go on this journey. So here you go, Praveen. Thanks, Nilesh. Okay.
All right. Off the bat, I'm going to ask you guys me count how many times I'm going to use data privacy and security, because I want to prove my critics wrong. I know when you're dealing with healthcare, absolute data privacy and security are absolutely non-negotiable. Anyways, I'm Praveen Adimulam, and I'm an architect with Werfen Cloud, and I'm excited to be here to take you through the technical part of this journey. All right. When we began this journey, we started as a small, tightly knit team. You saw the pictures from Nilesh. With a clear focus, we want to deliver value to our customers quickly and efficiently. And to achieve this, we established 5 key design principles. First, we adopted modular architecture, which allowed us to build and update software components independently. Next, we embraced multi-tenant model to ensure we support multiple customers on a shared infrastructure while keeping their data secure and isolated. We leverage AWS managed services, which helped us reduce the operational burden on our teams. And with cost efficiency, we designed our architecture to scale dynamically with demand. And finally, our iterative approach, we wanted to respond quickly to our customer feedback and adapt to the changing requirements so we could build our software in small increments and deliver. This is a quite busy slide, but it represents a critical component of our solution. I'm not going to go through every service or data flow in this diagram, but would like to mention that this is, like I said, it's a very critical component, and I would like you to take away a couple of key points which I'll talk through in this slide. And also, there is a reason why we choose this architecture. First, security and compliance. When dealing with sensitive PHI data, data privacy and security, I'm being conscious now, right? Data privacy and security are critical. And we wanted to make sure that our architecture ensures both this data privacy and security. Another reason was around scalability and flexibility of our architecture. Our medical devices generate large volumes of data, and we wanted to make sure our architecture scales seamlessly as the data grows and diversifies. Now, talking about the architecture, what you see on the left side is a typical customer for us. It could be a hospital, a clinic, or a lab that could be running their workloads in their on-prem data centers. I mean, there are a few customers who run in AWS private cloud. For most often, we saw these medical devices running behind a firewall with no direct internet connectivity. It might sound familiar to you guys. And one of the initial challenges we had was, how do we connect these devices to the cloud? So we leveraged AWS IoT Greengrass and set it up as our gateway, which helped us connect these devices to the cloud without direct internet exposure. That was super critical. And then it's where in the Greengrass, you could also de-identify the data if needed. And then once the data moves to the cloud, it traverses through multiple different services. And those are the services that we use based on the data type, the data processing requirements, and the data storage. For instance, we use IoT Core, which seamlessly connects to IoT Greengrass to manage telemetry data, as well as also device management. I mean, this architecture was purpose-built to balance scalability, security, and performance while meeting the demands of both our devices and customers. As Agastya explained earlier, when designing a SaaS platform, careful consideration needs to be made for control plane and application plane. What you're seeing on the screen here is or representation of control plane. This is our Werfen Cloud application architecture. On the top, what you see is a typical single-page application architecture. And our Werfen Cloud application, which we call it portal or platform, is securely accessed by our Werfen affiliates or employees to manage tenants. Those tenants are managed using shared services, which is the critical aspect of this architecture, which Agasti talked earlier, right? The shared services power the whole architecture by services like tenant management, tenant registration, infrastructure management, and then user management. These are very critical services which we centralized for our platform, so all our applications could use them without trying to rebuild all this architecture. So we try to make sure these are centralized and make sure all the applications are able to utilize this. Supporting these shared services are layers with logging, metrics, authentication, which are vital for any SaaS application. And moving on to the application services, what you see here is a small sample of our applications. There are some applications which are built using Spring Boot running in containers or .NET in containers. Or then there are some services which are built serverless using AWS Lambda serverless architecture. Our platform was built to ensure that we could support heterogeneous application technology stacks. What you don't see here on this screen is the underlying cloud infrastructure, which is built using LZA, the Landing Zone Accelerator for Healthcare, which I'll touch in the next slide. When we started to think about compliance, it was very clear that this was about not ticking a box. Compliance was about building trust by building a platform which our healthcare professionals and patients could trust. And when dealing with PHI data, data privacy and security are absolutely non-negotiable, which is why we choose LZA as the foundation for our cloud platform. One of the reasons was LZA provides us built-in healthcare-specific configurations and compliance controls, which align well with HIPAA framework. And compliance is not a one-time activity. It's an ongoing commitment. LZA also incorporates AWS best practices for data privacy and security, which was also critical for us, and where we utilized it for our foundation, or laying the foundation for our platform. Another reason we choose LZA was its support of multiple compliance, like frameworks like ISO 27001, GDPR. As we plan to grow and expand into multiple geographies, meeting these diverse regulatory requirements are critical. And then finally, there is a ready-to-use solution aspect. LZA accelerated our journey by bringing together more than 35 AWS services in a no-code pre-configured solution. All right, so that was all about how we build out and what we used. Now, with lessons learned, as with any journey, building a SaaS platform has its share of challenges and lessons learned. I would like to share a few of those. First, we quickly realized the importance of investing in training, not just for our technical teams, but also for our business stakeholders. And this investment helped us bridge the knowledge gap and help us work towards a common vision. To accelerate our SaaS build-out, we leveraged AWS ProServe and engaged with AWS SaaS Factory. Both provided invaluable guidance by providing their expertise and knowledge, which helped us overcome the common pitfalls in our journey and helped us focus on our execution of the platform. One of the bigger challenges we faced was adapting our quality assurance and change management for a SaaS build-out. Our existing policies did not fit well with the dynamic and iterative nature of SaaS platforms. So we had to redefine those policies and ensure that it supports the dynamic nature of that SaaS platform. Another challenge we faced was around monetization. Separating out the hardware cost from software was harder than we anticipated. By working with our business partners, we established a go-to-market strategy which aligns with SaaS-first principles. Then to meet compliance and regulations, we had to establish software as medical device regulatory strategy as well. And moving on to the technical side, using infrastructure as code transformed how we manage our environments by having a successful and consistent build-outs. As I mentioned earlier, using AWS IoT Greengrass, we were able to set it up as an edge gateway and connect to AWS cloud, and that helped us connect our medical devices from an on-prem to the cloud, while navigating the nuances of hybrid cloud solutions. Also, adjustments for delivering serverless architecture was also a major adjustment on our teams. And then using AWS managed services, which reduced further complexities so that our teams could focus on delivering features rather than managing infrastructure. And finally, by having a FinOps mindset, we managed our cost efficiently. All right. As we look forward to our future, our journey is far from over. We want to build on the foundation that has been laid so far and the lessons learned. First, we want to expand to multiple geographies. Our vision is to have our platform accessible globally. But with this expansion comes new challenges: understanding regional needs, tailoring our solutions, and ensuring scalability across diverse markets. Compliance will be the cornerstone. And as we plan to expand into multiple geographies, meeting additional compliance requirements like ISO 27001 or GDPR will be critical for us to expand. Data residency requirements are another focus. Many countries now mandate that the data reside within the boundaries, especially in healthcare. And we are exploring solutions for deploying into multiple AWS regions, as well as also making sure these solutions can keep maintaining our integrity and security of the platform. And finally, analytics will take the center stage. The data collected on this platform isn't just numbers. It's an opportunity for us to drive operational efficiencies, deliver meaningful insights, and better the patient care, right? So as we move forward, we are excited to collaborate, learn, and deliver solutions that truly make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Nilesh and Praveen, for sharing your journey. I'm sure this will inspire many of you in the room and all those watching this broadcast later as well. During this entire session, I talked about different resources So here they are, as promised. I've linked white papers to SaaS fundamentals, the skill builder courses to build up business and technology foundations, the landing zone accelerator, the SaaS reference architectures, and also the SaaS builder toolkit. I've also linked the compliance page and the AWS artifact service as well. I would highly encourage you to take a look at these resources as you get started on your journey. So, to bring it home, to summarize key takeaways for you, remember that SaaS is both a culture and technology shift. It is essential for you to orient your operating model of your organization along with the technology shift to be truly successful in SaaS. Feel free to engage with the AWS SaaS Factory that can provide you both business and technology guidance as you get started. We have reference architectures, business architects, etc., who can literally work hand in hand as an extension of your team to deliver on your business goals. Build compliance right from the outset. Shift left, as we call it. Utilize compliant AWS region, HIPAA-eligible services, AWS security and partner tools to get started on your security journey. Utilize the fully managed AWS services so that you can focus on delivering innovation for your end customers without focusing on the undifferentiated heavy lifting of managing services. And finally, to get started on a secure foundational environment, I would say definitely deploy the AWS Landing Zone Accelerator so that you get started with this robust multi-account compliant framework as well. And finally, to use the term that our CTO of Amazon.com, Dr. Warner Vogel says, now go build. Okay. Once again, Nilesh, Praveen, and I would sincerely like to thank you for attending our session today. Please take a couple of minutes to provide feedback on this session on the mobile app. I wish you good luck on the rest of re:Invent and safe travels back home. Thank you.